Whoever recommended this to me, thank you so much, and if you're watching, please recommend me more. That sounds fucking gut-wrenching. The worst of the worst, scum of the earth. This is super inappropriate and disturbing. It got me so excited. I feel so repelled by this book. This is like a new favorite. Hi, I'm Sam. There's quite literally no one asking me to do this, but I recently made a community post asking you all for book recommendations because I want to start a new series on my channel where I read subscriber recommendations and then let you guys know if I like them. So in addition to the community post, anytime anyone has ever commented on any of my videos recommending a book or saying they liked a book, I immediately add it to my TBR. So some of these books might not have been specifically recommended in the community post, but are ones from my list of previous comments from people. So I think it's probably going to be feasible for me to read about 4 to 5 recommendations per video, but it's kind of going to depend because some of the recommendations I got are pretty big books. So in those cases, I might only read like 2 or 3, but I don't know. We'll just see. This is just like a fun new series that I'm excited to embark on. So for this first video, I have selected 5 books from my huge list of recommendations, which I can't remember if I already said thank you, but thank you to those who have commented in the past or commented on the community post. It got me so excited. So if you don't see a book that you recommended in this first video, definitely keep watching because I do plan to hopefully read most, if not all, of the recommendations. But obviously my TBR is kind of like a Sisyphean task, you know, it's never ending. But I just don't want you to feel disheartened if your recommendation is not in this first video. It will hopefully be coming very, very soon. And the books that I selected for this video, part of it was how quickly could I access a book? Could I get it from my library? Could I find it secondhand? Size of the book. And then also just like how interested am I in it? I am a really big mood reader, so I didn't want to set a TBR that was too constricting. I kind of did want to work with what I'm in the mood for at the moment. So the first book on the TBR for this video is Timbuktu by Paul Auster. So this is about a man who is living on the streets in Brooklyn, New York, and he has a dog named Mr. Bones. And he is traveling on foot and he is trying to make his way to Baltimore to find his old teacher because he is dying. He is terminally ill and he is trying to find his old teacher so that he can give her his dog and basically secure care for his dog for after he passes away. That sounds fucking gut-wrenching. That sounds like it's gonna fucking kill me and make me want to scream cry. I feel like I could be in the mood for like a little bit of a scream cry. So I'm really looking forward to it. The classic stereotype is like, if there's a dog on a book cover, one way or another, you are not gonna leave that book without shedding at least one tear. So I hope that's the case. We'll see. The next recommendation that I chose was Nothing But the Rain by Naomi Salman. This is about a, I think, sort of post-apocalyptic town where the rain causes amnesia. And with every drop that hits your skin, a bit of memory is washed away. Stay too long in the wet and you'll lose everything you used to be. So it seems like the rain can kill you too. This is pretty short, so that's kind of partially why I chose this one. And that's kind of a unique premise, so I hope that I like this one. Next is Hotel Iris by Yoko Ogawa, and this was translated by Snyder. I've never read any Yoko Ogawa before, so we'll see. I think that they are kind of a divisive author, but we are from the point of view of a 17-year-old girl named Mari who works at the front desk of her family's seaside hotel, and one night they are forced to remove a middle-aged man and a prostitute from one of the rooms, and then I think Mari just becomes like kind of obsessed with that man. So I think this is gonna be like probably a disturbing, like big age gap sexual relationship. I don't know, I hope I like it. And then the next 2 I don't have physical copies of yet. The first is Cruddy by Lynda. It kind of seems like it might be YA because the cover is like illustrated and it seems like there might be illustrations throughout the book, but we're following this teenager and I think she just has like a really messed up life. but it seemed pretty intriguing. I think when I looked up reviews of this or like info about it, it seemed like it was kind of on the disturbing side. So I hope I like that one. And then the last one is A Game We Play by Simona Vinci, translated by Minna Proctor. This one I know for sure is going to be disturbing. This is about a group of kids who, I think they're just on like summer vacation, and they start to become like curious about their bodies. And I think that they start to kind of like maybe have physical relationships with each other. Depending on how disturbing that one is, I don't know if I'll be able to finish that one, but we'll see. I kind of gotta wait and see how it is once I start, and then I think I'll be able to tell if I will be able to make it all the way through. But those are the 5 books that I'm planning to read for this. I will check back in with you once I have made some progress on the books. Hello everyone, I have read some books. So I was hoping to check in with you guys more as I was reading in real time, but that did not happen. So I have completed the books that I wanted to finish. I will say there was one DNF. I'm not the type of person who is gonna force myself to read a book because that's just like a surefire way for me to put myself in a reading slump. So the vibes just were not vibing, so I DNF'd it. And I feel like I gave it enough of a shot. But surprisingly, Timbuktu by Paul Auster was not the scream-crying experience I was hoping for. It was honestly quite boring. We were even from the point of view of the dog quite a bit, and even that sort of unique, weird perspective wasn't enough to keep me engaged. So yeah, I didn't finish it, but fear not, I did finish the other 4. First of all, Nothing But the Rain by Naomi Salman. I think this was fine. I did like the ending, but this was obviously really short. It was indeed about a town who had to stay out of the rain because the rain caused amnesia, and if you are submerged or like touched by the rain for a specific amount of time, then it basically just like completely turns you into a vegetable and kills you. And it's dictated by like how big you are, so children are especially susceptible. And in addition, it was like their water in their plumbing, they had to let it sit for like a couple hours before they could use it, and then that somehow made it lose its amnesiac properties. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like this was fine. I liked how fast-paced it was. It literally was just like really short chapters, kind of like diary entries from this woman. I don't know how much I'm gonna remember of this in like a year. But this was fun, and I think if you're even a little bit interested, you should read this. Next, I want to talk about Hotel Iris by Yoko Ogawa, and this was translated by Snyder. So this is about an illicit affair between a high school age girl who works at a hotel and this like 50, 60-ish year old man who is a translator, and he translates between Japanese and Russian. So this is one where I wrote stuff down in my reading journal, so let's talk about that. I was hesitant going into this since Yoko Ogawa seems to be a subversive author, and I had seen some reviews mention toxic or unhealthy depictions of BDSM and sex in general. I mean, obviously, the girl is a minor. And overall, I liked the writing, like I liked the prose, but I didn't end up annotating a ton. Obviously, this was a library book, but usually even when I have a library book, I still will do sticky tabs. And then if I decide I want to buy the book, then I just purchase the book and transfer the tabs over from the library book. And then I underline in the book that I purchased. But yeah, I only have one tab. And even that was just like, oh, maybe I could read this for the video. I can't point to specific sections of the book that really stood out to me. I didn't love the sexual relationship because obviously it was wrong on so many levels. But honestly, I think the ending of this redeemed that part almost entirely for me, because I feel like the author was not trying to depict this in a gratuitous way. I think it really was like, this is super inappropriate and disturbing. But I guess I could see how some people would think this is too disturbing or too gratuitous, but I was really happy with how it wrapped up. I wasn't expecting the ending. Definitely raised my overall rating and opinion of the book. This is another one that I don't know how much I'm going to remember in like a year from now. And I wonder if that is just kind of Yoko Ogawa's writing style. It does have this sort of understated quality to it, which I think a lot of people would like, and I would understand why some people like it, but for me, there wasn't really a lot that stood out to me, but I am really glad that I read it. If Mother is so intent on paying me compliments, it might be because she doesn't really love me very much. In fact, the more she tells me how pretty I am, the uglier I feel. To be honest, I have never once thought of myself as pretty. She still does my hair every morning. She sits me down at the dressing table and takes hold of my ponytail, forcing me to keep very still. When she starts in with the brush, I can barely stand it, but if I move my head even the least bit, she tightens her grip. She combs in camellia oil, making sure every hair is lacquered in place. I hate the smell. Sometimes she pins it up with a cheap barrette. There, she says with deep satisfaction in her voice. All done. I feel as though she's hurt me in a way that will never heal. I guess I didn't rate Nothing But the Rain. Nothing But the Rain, I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This is probably like 3.5, 3.75. So read it if you want to. Okay, next is I think my favorite one from the video. This is like a new favorite. So to whoever recommended this to me, thank you so much. And if you're watching, please recommend me more. But that is Cruddy by Lynda Berry. Guys, this was 5 stars. This was 5 stars. I annotated the shit out of it. I thought this was going to be like YA because the cover really belies what is actually in the pages. And there are illustrations throughout, but like, do not be confused into thinking that this is going to be a silly, happy, funny, goofy time that young adults would be able to handle. This is quite disturbing. Yeah, and I f***ing loved it. I f***ing loved it. Okay, I also wrote about this one in my reading journal. It almost looks like a YA novel, but don't let the word illustrated fool you. This is most assuredly not for kids. There's a literal illustration of a corpse's head that appears as though it's smiling, but really its face is just stretched so due to rictus. This was an easy 5 stars for me, and I feel so honored and lucky to have subscribers that know me and my reading taste so well that they can recommend me books I'll rate 5 stars. So, like, sorry to get a little mushy on Maine, but seriously, I loved this one so much. I can't remember how I described the synopsis, but I think it was accurate. This really is about a girl who is sort of writing a manifesto. Yeah, and right on the first page, it basically says, like, if you are reading this, it means that I have successfully taken my own life. So we are told that from the jump, and that is not the bleakest thing that happens in this book. So really, we are following this girl. We're switching back and forth between her present day, which is when she's in high school, in the 1970s. Yeah, 1971. And when she was a child, like 11 years old, her father was leaving her mother, and her mother basically forced her to go with him. But it wasn't like, go with your father. It's like, sneak into his car and he's gonna take care of you. So he didn't even realize that she was there until he was like well away from the mom and her sister. So a lot of this is her on this cross-country road trip with her father, who is just like a piece of shit. You know, objectively, he's like the worst of the worst, scum of the earth. You know, she's 11 and he's like giving her alcohol and some of his cigarettes. He's drinking while driving, and it just kind of like gets worse and worse and more depraved from there. So it's obviously disturbing and brutal and harrowing and gritty, but there was also something so endearing about it, and I just couldn't stop reading. I didn't want to stop reading. Her family used to own slaughterhouses, but then her grandpa basically sold the company because they were going bankrupt, and now her father is like so resentful of that because he thinks that his dad basically conned him out of his inheritance, but really it was like he was doing right by him because otherwise he would have been saddled with a lot of debt. Flies have always been part of my life. In the days of Robeson's slaughterhouse, flies were everywhere, crawling up the walls like living designs. I used to fall asleep looking at them, thinking about their world, their society. Did they have kings? Did they steal from each other? My light fixture was black full with the bodies of them. I used to think they had feelings about certain people who noticed them, certain people, me. There was a fly in the car with the father and I. I wasn't sure if he was a slaughterhouse fly or just a middle of nowhere fly, one that got in when no one was noticing. And I wondered what it was going to be like for him when he got out again. What would he think when he flew out of the car and didn't recognize anything or anybody? Only in a fairy tale could he ever get home again. In fairy tales, it happened all the time. It was possible. I was thinking it was really very possible. And while I was thinking this, the father snatched the fly out of the air and mashed him with a gesture so quick I barely saw it. Meat men can do that. They can snatch flies right out of the air. The donut shop was on a corner of a street that turned very bummy and scruddy with trash, and there were little movie houses with faded pictures that displayed ladies bending and squatting with black tape across their eyes and naked boobs. The pictures were warped and greenish, and of course there were the dried out dead flies laying below them. Flies die in so many lonely places. Across the street from the donut shop was a 2-story neon clown holding a sign that said, "Amusements!" But the windows on that building had the boob ladies also. If in your mind a donut shop is a clean place with a clean paper-hatted man behind the counter and displays of innocent donuts and pots of coffee and good cold milk, well, this place was not like that. Not anything like it. There were people on gummy stools slumping and freaking in slow motion over the sticky counters. No teeth people smoking and scary teenagers also smoking. Some girls with too much makeup and some boys with scars on their faces and hanging hair. And behind the counter, the man was little and harassed looking, and his apron was filthy with something that could not come from donuts. I breathed through my mouth and stood on a folding chair to reach the trailer window and pointed the flashlight. The first thing I noticed was the way the miniature kitchen looked in the spin art of blood. Dark flung patterns everywhere, fly highways going in every direction. The second thing was on the floor. I can tell you this. A man who has been dead for a week in a hot trailer looks more like a man than you would first expect. The face bloats out giantly in purple-black, and there are textures, horrifying textures, but it's the mouth that makes you scream. When you see his black crusted lips pulled away from shockingly white teeth, when you see him shining out his special smile, just for you. So yes, I cannot recommend this book highly enough. I think this might be my favorite thing I've read so far this year. Is that true? If it's not my favorite thing I've read so far this year, it's definitely up there. It is a contender for sure. I feel like it was the perfect balance of brutal and funny. Again, whoever recommended this to me, whoever you are, you should comment, and then we can all praise you for your fantastic recommendation, because this was spot on. It was a little scary spot on, with how much I loved it. So yes, this was a fantastic recommendation. Thank you. Okay, and then the last one, I think I subconsciously waited for this to be the last one because I just was very disturbed by this book. So that is A Game We Play by Simona Vinci. This is one of those books where it's did I finish the book or did the book finish me? You know? I know I just made my video of the most disturbing books I've ever read, but after reading this, I kind of feel like this would be on that list now because yeah, this was gnarly, guys. This was as bad as I thought it was going to be, if not worse. I need to collect my thoughts because just talking about this book again is making my brain get triggered. So I've read many books that people would consider to be disturbing. But even my top 5 most disturbing books that I just talked about in my recent video were ones that I gave 5 stars. So it's they disturbed me, but I also still really enjoyed them. Not to be dramatic, but after reading this, I kind of wonder if I had ever actually been disturbed by a book before, because this experience just felt so different. I guess I could hold the book. Sorry, I'm a good booktuber. This experience just felt so different, and when I finished it, I just felt so repelled by it, but not in a way where, some things you read and it's just very shocking and gratuitous for the sake of being disgusting or shocking. This was super well written. The prose was great, but I can definitively say this disturbed me. It's now I know what it actually feels like, and the thought of giving this 5 stars, it feels wrong because yeah, I feel so repelled by this book. Yeah. I feel my brain is short-circuiting. I'm gonna use my reading journal to help me get through this. The writing in this was so incredibly unsettling. And of course the content was disturbing, but I think for something to be truly disturbing on a personal level, a piece of media has to make you discover or confront something about yourself that you don't like. I'm still not totally sure what that something was for me in the case of this book, but what felt different about this book was that when I finished it, I felt that I could not assign a rating to this book. I feel physically repelled by this book, so it feels impossible to rate it in such a way that properly represents my experience. I think this is one of few books that have truly disturbed me. Now that I've had time to reflect on this book a little bit more, I think what is so disturbing about this is that this story doesn't feel like it's completely out of the question. And by that I mean, if you were a person who when you were a child was allowed to hang out with neighborhood kids and friends, and they trusted you to behave and not get into anything bad when you were spending time with your friends, sort of unsupervised. But in this book, really, it's there's mostly 10, 11-year-olds, and there's 2 older boys who are 15, 16, 17, and really it's them. It's these 2 bad eggs, and really one guy who's the leader, sort of leading these children down this hole of depravity. I want to think that this is something that would never have possibly happened to me as a child, and I really don't think that that would have happened because the parents in this are very hands off. Like, they really don't give a shit about their kids, and I'm lucky enough to have parents who give a shit about me. Shout out mom and dad if you're watching. But still, I feel like to some degree though, these parents just trusted their children, and they live in this small Italian town. It's like nothing bad could ever happen here, you know? It's summer, the kids are just hanging out with other kids. Like, what could really go wrong? But it's like, if you have one bad egg, one older child, they can really lead other kids astray. And I think it kind of also reminded me too of like when you're a kid and you kind of worship older kids and you really look up to them, and like you're learning from them about how to be a person to some degree. So it's sort of like their word is law. And especially if you think that person is cool or you admire them, I don't know. I want to think that this couldn't actually happen in reality. But I think that that is what really got to me, is that I saw so much of my childhood in these like kind of boring, sticky, small town summers. And it's like, I'm so glad that I was like spending my time reading books and I didn't get sort of like led astray in this way. I don't know. I feel like I just ranted a ton about this. I don't know if any of that made sense, but that is how well I can articulate at this point. A lot was lost in those moments, and a lot of new things came from where no one knew. Emotions hard and direct, like punches in the face, things you don't forget, empty of sweetness, hard enough to make you cry when you remember them. Things that divided them and united them in an instant, as with everything you do in this world together with somebody else. They sat with their mouths hanging open, suddenly happy with the summer, the fresh air, being there, still all friends, still the same, after everything. Not doing anything in particular, just existing, peacefully, in the middle of the frantic shouts of children in the square, the laughter of couples walking together down the road, the music, the confusion. Martina squeezed Mateo's finger, smiling. 10 years old, both of them. So old. Yeah, this is one I can't recommend, guys. I'm not faulting the person for recommending this to me, because I do still think at the end of the day I enjoyed my time with this, but like I did not come out of the other side of this reading experience unscathed. This was very, very, very disturbing. It's a gnarly one, folks. Okay, overall, I read or tried to read 5 books. So, what's the verdict? Do you guys have good reading taste? I would say overall, yes. I feel so honored that there are people who would know me well enough to recommend books that I not only would like, but in some cases would give 5 stars. Like, I don't know, that just feels really special to me. So thank you so much to anyone who recommended anything. I had so much fun with this, and I am going to continue the series for sure. So if you want to recommend me a book, I'll add it to my list, and then maybe you will see me reading that in an upcoming video. So you can like this video if you want, comment, recommend me some books, and I'll read them and put them in a video. You could subscribe, would love to have you. And I love you guys very much. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in whatever video I make next. Bye.